Marina Larroude, thank you for joining me. So you went from being the VP of fashion at Barneys to launching your own brand during the pandemic. What was that moment like when you decided, okay, I'm actually doing this?
Honestly, I've been in the fashion industry for 20 years. Before Barneys, where I was fashion director working in retail, I was an editor for the longest time at Condé Nast at various titles. My latest job being fashion director at In Vogue. During the pandemic, what really drove me and both Ricardo and I, my husband and CEO for Larroude, it was necessity. We were unemployed and we were like, we don't know how long the pandemic is going to last. We don't know how long this situation is going to be. There's clearly no other way to, if there was another time, maybe we would, I don't know, freelance or network or somehow, right? But then I think it was a time that we didn't see any other windows open, right? And any other doors open. So we're like, we better take matters with our own hands. And then it was when we start thinking about it and we were like, okay, it's now or never. We're going to do our own thing.
I find it fascinating how you transition from editorial to retail, then to founding your own brand. How did those different roles prepare you for entrepreneurship?
Oh, so many. I learned so much from all the spaces that I had the experience, right, to work with. So how to talk to press, how to learn about, because I was an editor, I met with so many designers. I heard their stories. I heard how they launch a product. I saw the entire pretty much market, right, in the fashion space, from ready-to-wear to accessories to jewelry. So it gave me so much knowledge of what it was out there in the market, what I think it wasn't there in the market, what I thought they should have done and should not have done. And then when I went to Barneys in retail, I put all that learning that I had in editorial, that I was like, okay, someone is launching a collection and this is how they're doing, and to actually see the end result, right? To see how a customer will respond to a product. At the end of the day, you can launch a product however you want, but then is the customer going to buy it, right? Are you really succeeding in terms of sales at the end of the day? Because if you're not selling the product, you can have a great idea, you can have a beautiful product, but if no one is buying, then you just have an idea.
Mm-hmm. So going back to the early days, you were unemployed, you and Ricardo, and what was the first product idea? What was your first SKU that you wanted to put out there?
So I think my entire career led me to shoes in a way. Shoes did pick me before I picked, shoes. I saw and I launched so many footwear brands, from Aquazura. I remember being the first editor to ever see Edgardo's collection, to Gianvito Rossi. I was one of the very first ones to see it. And I saw how successful those brands were, right? So when I looked into the past decade of what I was in the fashion industry, that's were the brands that really made a difference, right? That really stood out. Then I knew so many people that were launching DTC brands in terms of ready-to-wear, being sweaters and knitwear and all of that. And I was like, okay, this market is already oversaturated. Then comes Ricardo, and it's me talking about all of this, and he's like doing a deep study on it, on every single thing, doing a deep study on the market, understanding what it was the need, where I had an instinct and I was like, okay, this is what a woman wants to buy. This is the price point that we need to be as a client, as a woman, as what I would imagine what a client would want, right? What we would make a difference, what it was the white space. So I had all those ideas, but he was very meticulous and very studious in understanding the entire footwear landscape globally. And then we were like, okay, We knew some people that were out of a job, during that time. There were footwear designers that had that experience as well. And we put it together. Within 4 people, we decided to launch. We started small, right? We did a sample of probably 40 shoes. We designed a collection, let's say, of what I wanted to be the wardrobe for women. So the most beautiful, simple, sexy sandal, the perfect ballerina shoe, the perfect boot, the perfect brogue, and from there it ended up being 40 SKUs. From the concept to launch, that took us 6 months, less than that, pretty much.
6 months. So interesting. So you had the experience, you had the instincts, you understand what women want, but Ricardo went to do
The homework.
pretty deep
Yes.
research. I'm really curious what he found out in the research. What was the white space? He came back to you and said, Marina, this is not being fulfilled. We should be going into this.
I think it really proven my theory that, like, in the footwear, you either have this lower market, and when you're talking about like the lower market, the $100 like shoe dog, those are not made with leather, not made with the highest quality materials. I mean, they are that price point because of, the products that they're using to achieve that, price point. And then you have this super high price point shoe at a $1,000 shoe, but then nothing in between. So there was like this huge white space, right? And from my fashion designers or like my fashion director friends from Bloomingdale's, and Bloomingdale's is a bad example because they really love the collection since day one. But everyone was like, if there is a white space, it's because it shouldn't be there, right? It shouldn't be at this price point. People really, they don't want to buy a shoe that is $300. So like if they are going up to that level, then they want to buy a real designer shoe, whatever that is, for like $700. And I completely disagree. I do think that people want to buy a super high quality designer shoe at max, $350, $300. And we went ahead, and whenever we were designing the collection, I was even telling this story the other day, and we were like, what is the best leather that we can use? What is the best outsole that we can use? What is the best product and material that we can put in the shoe? And that it was Ricardo's direction when we first started the brand. They were like, create the best product that we can, possibly, and then we will figure out the retail price at the end of it. So that's what we did.
Interesting. Right before the New Year's, my latest podcast episode was again with a shoe brand founder, or now CEO Sidra Kasim Adams.
Okay.
They make these sneakers, and she explained to me how she learned shoemaking from craftsmen in Pakistan.
Wow.
And then she kind of understood the shoemaking process, and I found that fascinating. So I want to ask you, what did you know about shoemaking before
Nothing.
you started Larroude?
I mean, listen, I was a fashion director before, right? I used to guide and oversee and see the Barneys private label collection. But in terms of like shoe manufacturing, I knew nothing. I could talk to a manufacturer in terms of like, this is how many millimeters I want in a strap of a shoe, and how I want, the quality of like the top calfskin leather to be on a sandal, but the manufacturing of it, I had no knowledge. And also it's a blessing, right? Because, and one of the things about the footwear business that you don't see a lot of brands out there, the way that you see in all this ocean of DTC in terms of either ready to wear or beauty or sunglasses or whatever you see out there, it's because the product itself, it's easier to make, right? It's easy for you to produce. So it's less hard to make it happen, right? And then in the footwear, it's very complicated. And then one shoe, you have to have 12 SKUs if you're thinking about like all the sizes that you have, a 5, 5.5, 6, 6.5. So you have to really be, your entire focus and learning has to be on footwear. So it took us a moment, right, to learn. Thankfully, Ricardo is very intelligent, and he did a very deep dive into the shoe manufacturing, and then how long it takes and how much it was needed for us to improve, and that it was one of the things when we decided to open our own factory, I believe 2 years ago, because we really wanted to take care of the product from the beginning until the end.
And so, how did you find the first manufacturer? You went to Brazil, I imagine.
So we
You
were,
started shoe
so I am
manufacturers?
Brazilian born, right? And I am Brazilian born. I was born and raised there. I moved to New York 21 years ago. We were working, I had a network of people that I had worked before in the past that knew, okay, I know this factory, let's try to start working with them. And then we develop our first collection with that factory. And to be really honest, I had worked with factories in Italy when I was at Barneys, when I used to oversee, the Barneys footwear private label business, and that was made in Italy. And I wasn't sure that Brazil would be able to do the high quality item that I was looking for. And when the first samples came, I looked at Ricardo and I started crying because I couldn't believe at the quality that it came, right? And for me, it was very important to have a product that I really believe in, that I really love the quality, that I really stand by it no matter what. To understand it has my name, it has my kid's name, it has my reputation of 20 years, right, in the industry. And that's something that I hold very dearly. And ever since launch, working on those samples, I have never worn any other design, any other footwear brand, unless it's an athleisure sneaker that I wear to the gym, but I only wear Larroude.
Yeah. So you said one thing that's probably encouraging and inspiring for entrepreneurs, that you didn't know anything about shoemaking, yet look.
I knew a lot about the industry, and I knew what the clients were looking for, right? The manufacturing of a shoe, I had no clue.
Yeah. So that to me, if I wanted to start a shoe brand, even if I knew a lot about the industry, I'd still be intimidated because I know nothing about shoemaking. So I feel like it's none of my business and I'd be scared.
Yes.
But seeing you, it's inspiring because then I guess the message to aspiring entrepreneurs here is that you just have to do your homework, even if you don't know anything about it. So maybe it's like listen.
If you're gonna wait for the time that you're ready, you're never gonna be ready, right? I was an editor and I jumped into retail, knowing nothing about retail. And then when I got to Barneys, it was like learning an MBA on fashion retail in America, right? And that's the learning. You have to make the jump, even though you're not ready. But the question is, you have to give your all, right? No matter what. You're gonna have so many curveballs thrown at you. It's a fact, right? It's a fact. Every day you have something, and you have to realize: is this a big problem? Is this a small problem? How do I tackle this? But at the end of the day, you have to look at it and be like, no matter what, this is it, right? No matter what, this is my life, and I'm gonna make it happen. So if you have that. If you know that no matter what, you're not going to give up, I think that's what it's going to take for you to get a brand going and going and going.
Marina, you said it took you 6 months to go from idea to producing something. If you're able to share, how much money did you invest in it in those early stages to get it going?
Listen, I don't want to say that I do not even remember, but I don't want to give you an exact number, because how we did it was we bootstrap it, right? We didn't raise capital and we were like, okay, let's burn cash, let's hire this agency to design our website, let's do this, let's do that. So until today, I am the one who does the press for Larroude. We had a press agency that worked with us for 8 months, and then I am doing it, right? So to that level it was me and Vicky, who works with me, and we were physically designing the website on a PowerPoint and having a meeting like I am with you right now with a developer in India, and we're like, this is what we wanted to do, right? We had agencies that were like, okay, to design a website and put the website for you together, it's gonna cost like $50,000. When I heard that, I almost like threw up. I had 2 kids at home. My husband and I, we were like unemployed. I was like, how am I gonna get $50,000? I can't, like I cannot. And we were like, we're gonna figure it out. So we paid someone, I think our website in the beginning cost us $4,000 to do. So that's how we led the company, right? We were like, okay, we need to get 40 shoes done by the factory. How much does this cost? What is the minimum that we have to produce? And we had to produce like 3,000 pairs, which at the time sounds like astronomical, right? But we were very cautious about it. So for 2 years, we were working out of my dining room. I had people coming to my house, and we were out of my house because we didn't spend the money in rent for an office in New York City, right? So that it was how we really bootstrapped the company. And every decision that we made, it was always being based on, okay, if I put this much money, if I invest here, am I gonna get the return back? The first time when we launched our first campaign, we didn't have money, to pay for models. I reached out to my friends and I was like, who has a model friend that I can give 2 pairs of shoes and will do this for me? I reached out to my personal friends throughout the industry. I was like, listen, girls, would you be part of this? Would you be part of my first campaign? I'll give you a pair of shoes. Would you join? Then I'll ask a photographer who was a friend of mine. Someone told me back then, they were like, you helped so many people in the industry. Now this is your time to ask everyone for a favor and put yourself out there. If you don't do it for you, no one else will. And that takes me up until today. I'm shameless. With all the sense of the road, I have no problem in getting no as an answer. I am very direct. I'm very honest. I will ask you. I'll be like, oh, can you please put this podcast? And if you're like, no, I cannot. And I'll be like, okay, no problem. But I will ask, right? And I've been a huge advocate for Larroude since day one. So for us, it was never about like how much money we're going to spend to make this happen. It was like, how can I make this happen? So honestly, we were unemployed. We put our 401ks into the company. Do you understand? That's what it took. So I don't have that answer that it's like, okay, I put $1 million in and then the return was this, because that's not our story. That's not how we did it.
Yeah.
It was like in a month by month scenario. You're like, can we afford $1,000 here? It certainly adds up, but it was like, every day. We were like, no, I cannot afford an intern. No, I cannot afford this. Like, it was us working 14 hours a day for probably, I don't know, years, or probably until today.
Yeah. You mentioned 3,000 shoes. Did you have to make a commitment to the manufacturer to get 3,000 shoes?
No, yes. Whenever we place an order, they were like, we had a minimum. We had to do the minimum.
Wow. But that's after the first 40 was done, right? So you were
we did the collection, we did the initial collection, like the 40 samples, and then after that we placed a buy, and the total buy was around 3,000 pairs.
Mm-hmm. And you said that you weren't sure if Brazil could produce like Italian level quality shoes, and you got the sample and you felt like crying because it was so good.
Yeah.
And then you personally felt, so I'm understanding from you that your experience is driving instincts. You have this gut feeling, and sounds like Ricardo is very analytical.
Correct.
When that happened, your instincts told you, okay, we got something here. But like from like research or like customer feedback perspective, like I imagine, did Ricardo come to you and say, we have to get some feedback here before we put the 3,000 order out of the 40? Like, how did you know that people were going to like that?
Listen, what I knew at the time, it was that the product was done in the highest quality possible, right? And that I stand by no matter what, right? I knew that it was the best material, best handmade, best, that the product was beautifully done. Then you don't know until you put this stuff in the market. Like, I have a good learning of what I think a product will succeed. Like, I know now from 20 years of seeing, like, okay, what performs, what doesn't perform, what will perform, what won't perform. But but there's like a lot of new surprises that we get, that the customer will want something. One of the big learnings for us is we launched Larroude 2020 on December, right? We launched with probably like one comfortable shoe, because I didn't launch a brand for the pandemic. We were like, this shall pass as well, and whenever the customer will come to us, and be ready for that. From my experience in retail, especially through my Barneys years, it was very much like black. It's what it sells, right? It's the basic, it's the basic, it's the basic. A lot of my theory is, it's like the fashion, or like the clients, they do want to buy an emotional piece. They do want to buy something that it's whimsical, that it's fun, that it's colorful. They're not doing it. Or a lot of times I saw that in the shoe floor at Barneys. They'll be like, oh my God, I love this pink shoe, but I cannot justify the price. It's too much. I don't know how many times I'm going to wear. I'm going to buy the black version because I know that I'm going to wear, I don't know, many other times. And I'm like, just buy what you really love, and you're going to make it work. And that's what we did with Larroude. We're like, we're going to make those crazy fun printed shoes, and let's see. So we launched on December 20, April 21. It was when the vaccine came out for COVID.
Just in time.
And so what happened, there was like that splurge, the revenge shopping that people wore.
Revenge.
Do you remember that? They were like the revenge shopping.
Yes.
And then no one wanted to buy a black shoe. They wanted to buy a lilac sandal with daisies on it. And that, for me, I was like, oh my God, every single thing that I learned in retail, that women would want to buy the black one because it's safe. They're like, no. So the shoes that were sold out with us, right? Like, as soon as the vaccine and as soon as people came out, it was the whimsical shoes. It was the fun, the flirty, like, the lilacs, the floral, all of that. Could I have predicted that? Like, no. Like, it was unprecedented times. Do you understand? Like, never in a million years. Because if you look at the history of retail, and if you look at the sell-throughs from like every single department store, you're going to see it's the basic, the core items that oversells. And it wasn't that, the customer wanted something else.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a little bit scary, Marina. You have this whole plan, you strategize, and then all of a sudden, people's psychology and emotions completely change, and they want something else. How do you respond to something like that so quickly? Especially shoes.
Okay, you call the factory, you start screaming, and you're like, please, 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 I need a reorder. That's what that's what we did back then, right? Nowadays, we do it in a very different analytical format. We look at sales pretty much. We look at sales data every day. We place reorders on a bi-weekly basis, and because we have our own manufacturing, we can get the shoes to the client's house within 2-3 weeks if we don't have that in stock. So we are really changing the footwear luxury space. That none of this has happened, the way that we produce, the way that we do it, and it doesn't happen in the footwear space. So now we are really changing how it's been done. But that it was, a lot of Ricardo and putting all the back end pieces together and looking and seeing what really performs, because otherwise you miss a season, right? In footwear, you are like, okay, this is really killing in the summer, and then if you cannot address the reorder in a timely manner, then it's just for next year. And that way it happens a lot of the brands, especially if they manufacture abroad, could be Italy, could be China. They're only going to get a reorder like 6 months from now, and we do it in a matter of weeks.
That's incredible. Marina, how did you sell your first 100 shoes? Do you remember the marketing strategy behind that?
Oh my God. It's funny you're saying this because we just got a trophy from Shopify for selling, I don't know, thousands of units. I don't remember the first 100. I remember the first couple of orders. There were
Okay, tell me
the
about
couple
this.
of orders that were people that did not know me. And that it was when I was like, okay, we can make it. Because when you open the website and like everyone that you know and they're your friends who are buying and supporting you are like, okay, people are just like they want to just support me and show that they're there for me. And but then when someone bought the shoes and they didn't know who I was, that was really great. And a lot of times today when I am go to a restaurant, and especially with my kids, they love to see this. When I go to the restaurant and they're like, oh, the name of the reservation, and I'm like Larroude, and they're like, oh, same as the shoes, and I'm like, great, people know the brand and they don't know us. And coming from someone who has been in the industry for a long, long time, that gives me tremendous, satisfaction that the brand is stand on its own.
What a feeling. I can't imagine. How did they find out? Do you remember that first person who was not a friend? Did you
So
see
either
any
they
feedback on that?
saw with another person wearing, or they saw on like we did a lot of wild postering in New York in the beginning because that it was what we could, do. It was very like, as I said, bootstrappy. We they saw online somewhere, or they saw it at like a department store, and that's how it go. Or like they saw a celebrity wearing, and that's how it was really in the beginning, I gifted the shoes to a lot of people that I knew in the industry that were leaders within their own field, right? Stylists or personal friends that had brands before, influential people within their own field that were people that I knew. Right, so that's how I started. We were like, okay, we're gonna do a gifting to those people and have those people talking about the brand. One other thing that we did very early on, it was to photograph a campaign with 10 various women that we knew from various fields, like women that were visual merchandiser with me at Barneys, women that were editors before, stylists, friends in general. And then they were all like the campaign women for Larroude. And with that, we had that entire network knowing about the brand. But it was a very, a friend to friend talking about it, right? Everyone, and then it became scale in that sense, but it has always been a person to person relationship.
So, Marina, from a marketing perspective, what has worked really well for you so far, and what do you think is going to work in like this year in 2025?
So, digital marketing works really well, right? If you're looking at ROAS, if you're looking at what performs, what doesn't perform, and the same way that we look at sales, we look at data for those digital ads very closely on a weekly basis, and then we also look on organic socials, and we're like, this post is really performing, let's move this to paid. We're very data driven, and we launched the brand this way. And of course there were like tons of learning curves, right? That were like, okay, we need to post so many posts in a day, we need to post so little in a day, and then there is like the iOS change, and then there's this change, and then there's that change. So it doesn't matter. I'll tell you like what it works today, it won't work tomorrow because some sort of technology is gonna change, and it will really change the whole thing of like how we do things. But we have an agency in-house. It's not an agency, but we call it an agency. We have a team in Brazil that we have around 10 between graphic designers, photographers, videographers, that we produce all that content in-house. And in the minute that we see that something really work online, then we produce more of that same. And that comes with a lot of my editorial experience on creating the most beautiful imagery and assets and videos, and then Ricardo looking at the data and digesting the data with the team and be like, this really works, go and run. And then we are like being very creative and creating something new constantly. So that's how we feed the machine.
And for the creators who are watching and listening, what do you look for when you're looking to do influencer creator collaborations?
So we don't do any, personally, I'm very against on paying anyone to wear any product. I believe in if the product's good, then they should wear it and they should post and tag. That's how I do with any other brand that give me anything. And I also believe that if I said this the other day, we do a gifting, right? We do gifting to people that we believe fits into the brand, fits into the soul. We believe that a woman wearing it, then she talks to 5 friends about it. So it's, it's a growing, we do a seeding. And if someone posts and tags, and great, and then we continue to work with them in that sort of capacity. If we're gifting to someone and they'll never post, they'll never tag, then I won't gift them again. But I don't believe in paying someone because I don't think it's an honest relationship with the client. I also believe that if you pay someone, then everyone will want to be paid. We certainly, I don't have the money for that. But even if I did, I don't believe in something that you need to pay someone to wear your products.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about AI. So what do you think fashion companies, brands are gonna use AI going forward? How is Larroude using it now, and how do you wanna change the way you operate? Maybe implement AI in your operation.
Listen, as I was describing to you, even though we have 10 people in Brazil, and then I have probably like 3 or 4 in New York working on creative, right? I think AI for us would enhance our content, right? There are like some videos that we're able to create with AI that we wouldn't be able to create. Like we had one, there was a shoe exploding. How do you even do that in the real space, right? So that I think is fascinating. We use a lot of like ChatGPT to help us, with storytelling. We're like, okay, how about this story? How about this story? It's not that we count on it and we're like, okay, ChatGPT, do this for us, and then that's it. But we use the support. It could be for little things or bigger things, or we share thoughts. I am excited about, I think that right now, if I want to change the background, like the white background for a picture, and I have 5,000 pictures, am I going to have a human doing like changing every single one? Wouldn't it be amazing just to drop everything into, click a button and then it's done? So I do believe that would enhance a lot of our work, would help us tremendously, in with the fast pace that we run things. So I am excited about.
Marina, final 2-part question. Top 2 problems giving you a headache right now, and top 2 priorities you're excited about this year.
Okay, problems right now. We are growing, right? So we have a lot of like growing pains. Ricardo is right now in Brazil, and he's hiring 200 people for manufacturing. We had a very good problem to have, we had a higher demand for our shoes than we were expecting. And I say this, but it's growing pains, because you do want to give the customer the best experience possible. So that's been, something that it's personally, they were like, oh my God. And then the growing pain of that, right? System integrations, like all of that it's not part of my field, but I know it's something that we are working endlessly to make it happen in the best way possible. So coming from a brand from this, like a company from this big, to having a manufacturer, to have 2 manufacturers, it is growing pains for sure. And things that I'm very excited. We are launching sneakers as of January 21st. We're launching on the website. It's a product that took us some time to develop, as we had no experience in developing that type of footwear. We're launching that on January 21st, and that I am very excited. And part of the sneaker, we're also doing a little revamp in the creative of Larroude, doing a little bit of like a facelift a little Botox to the brand. Exciting time.
Marina Larroude, thank you for sharing your journey
Thank
with
you
me.
so much. Thank you for having me.